Hello everyone and welcome to Talking Good Games match preview. Chelsea against West Ham United, the Premier League. We're back to the Premier League, Europa League coming up during the week, but for now, focus is on Stamford Bridge. Gonzo, kick us off as always with your thoughts on our opponents. Chelsea, please.
Well, I don't think it's easy to talk about Chelsea and not mention everything that's gone on, obviously, with the Roman Abramovich. I think that's the first thing. That's clearly a shadow that's hanging over the club at the moment. Realistically, the Chelsea fans don't know if the spending's going to continue as it was, whether it's going to sort of diminish significantly or maybe somewhere in between. I suspect the middle one will probably be the answer. It generally is. Look, they've had a really, really good run for such a long time now. And I think what's about to happen is they're going to reap some of the rewards of what Roman Abramovich has put into place. And by that, I mean, it's not just the spending, but I mean, the fact that he's set up this system with Chelsea whereby they hoover up a lot of the most talented youngsters around and then loan them out to other clubs, bring them back in and have a conveyor belt that's really yielded quite a lot of money for them. So they have an additional income stream that maybe other clubs don't have. So I think they're certainly going to feel the benefit of that because if, as I understand it, most of the people looking to buy the club are American investors. And I do understand that there is, as we record this, some rumours of Lewis Hamilton being involved in a consortium as well. But what you'll find is when you have American investors, they'll look for a return. And if they're looking for a return, then actually that extra budget that Chelsea have by buying and selling the young players and just look at how they've traded recently. Their trading is going to help them enormously. Do I think that they'll be able to spend the money and make £150 million loss every season or whatever? No, I think those days are gone. But I think even if they just operate within their means, they'll still be a competitive football club.
More to come off the pitch at Chelsea, but what about on the pitch just quickly, Gonzo? Is it what you expected? Third in the Premier League, but some way off Liverpool and Man City. They're a hell of a lot closer to Tottenham and fourth than they are to the two ahead of them. Obviously got put out in the Champions League quarterfinals with Real Madrid. Is this what you thought Chelsea would do, or are you a bit disappointed on their behalf?
I think actually there's two big reasons. So Tuchel came in last season and did miraculous things, got them, actually pipped us to the post in the end. And I think it's reasonable to say if you look at the lineage of what happened there last season, had Tuchel not have come in, we would have finished above Chelsea. They came in, they won the Champions League, and he really looked like he was going to be a manager that was going to go and challenge those top two that you just alluded to. I do believe, however, there are two factors that have played into it not happening. One, very much in their control, one out of their control. The thing that's out of their control, I've just mentioned. I think it's miraculous that he's rallied them as much as he has. If you're any doubts whether Tuchel's a good manager, the way he's handling that club at the moment tells you that he absolutely is. The other thing that was in their control was the recruitment of Lukaku. It ain't worked out. That was meant to be the catalyst that pushed them over the line. That was, I don't know the exact price, but that was a £100 million striker who I know has been there before. That was going to make the difference. Let's be fair. Timo Werner's not really worked out as everybody expected. And the fact that they're in to pay Kai Havertz up there, he's had a little strop. Lukaku as well. He's made some unhelpful comments. It has to be said. There's no flashing his knickers at Inter Milan as well. And so I think that stopped them as much as anything. Chucking a guy with an additional 30 goals, they're up there. Take Lukaku out of it, then they're in the next. They're almost in a little section of their own, Chelsea.
The thing is, though, they're off the pitch thing. You alluded to the out of control thing there with the ownership. That's not happened until the last couple of months. Chelsea were bang at the title race after a few months, when everything was going okay in that department. There wasn't really any worries in regards to the ownership of Chelsea or stuff. I think the Lukaku thing at the start of the season sort of Tuchel's had a lot to deal with in regards to that Lukaku thing, then the ownership thing. There's always something going on at Chelsea. I think the biggest factor for me is one is the recruitment that you've spoken about, which I'll get onto in a second, but also the injuries. Reece James is out for a while, Ben Chilwell's been out for the whole season. And I think when Tuchel plays that formation, it heavily relies on the wing backs, and obviously Chilwell on one side, Reece James on another. There's a heck of a lot different to Marcos Alonso and Azpilicueta or Hudson-Odoi or whoever it is that he plays on the right. It's two completely different teams almost. So I think the injuries haven't been on his side, but the Lukaku thing's just been all wrong. And on his day, he's one of the best strikers in European football. He was unreal at Inter Milan. He's come in, first game up against Arsenal, bang, and barges the defender out of the way, smash it into the back of the net. You're thinking, crikey, here we go. This is a top striker. And it's been horrendous. But it's not just the transfer of Lukaku. It's what happened prior in order to get the transfer of Lukaku that's gone badly wrong. So they sold Tomori to Italy. They sold a guy to Crystal Palace, who are both better than Christensen. Both of them. They just sold them to fund Lukaku. They also sold Tammy Abraham, who's banging in goals in Italy for fun, to fund Lukaku. So it's not just the guy that came in, it's the three that went out as well. And here they are heading into the summer where they need to now replace Christensen, who they chose over Tomori and Guy. Horrendous transfer policy at Stamford Bridge last summer. And you've got to look at the manager to that as well as other people at the club and say, well, it's not worked out, has it? I feel a bit sorry for Tuchel. He's clearly a genius of a manager to some extent. Recently, they went away to Real Madrid, and it's one of the best performances I've seen from an English team in 90 minutes in European football. As we say, a long time. It's difficult to say that when Chelsea's gone on to win the Champions League, and not long before them, there was Liverpool. So the English team have done quite well recently. But that performance was incredible. Then they go smash Southampton, and then they go and get beat by Arsenal. You think, how is that the same club to some extent? How's that the same team? It's got Tuchel's fingerprints on it, but it now needs Tuchel's blueprint on it, if you like. So this is a huge summer coming up. But like you said, it all hinders on the ownership of Chelsea. Until we know about that, they can't possibly plan for the summer. So be interesting to see what to expect at Stamford Bridge. Now, before we talk a little bit more about Chelsea, before we get into the West Ham side of it, do check out the OneFootball app, which is sponsoring this video. The link to download it's in the description and the pinned comments of this video. And it's completely free. It doesn't matter who the ownership is. This app is free. You don't need to worry about your budget when getting this app onto your device. But keep up to date with the latest going on at your football club and the competitions you wish to follow. So the Chelsea fan, you're only really interested in Chelsea in the FA Cup at the minute. Whereas West Ham fans, we're interested in the Europa League as well at the minute. So we're downloading it. We're saying we'll have a bit of the Premier League, we'll have a bit of West Ham, and we'll have a bit of that European competition as well, because we're still in it. The only London club left in a European tournament. Yep, follow, sorted. But anyway, big team news from both sides coming up. Rudiger's a massive doubt. It looks like Rudiger's out for Chelsea. Christensen's a doubt as well. Obviously, on the West Ham side of things, we've got our own centre-back crisis going on, which we'll go to talk about. But keep up to date. Get downloaded. Links in description. Gonzo, just very, very quickly on Chelsea then. Next season, have they almost... What's their aims then? Is it just to do the same again, but a little bit better? Or are you looking at them thinking, well, you've got to almost mount a title challenge? You have to, regardless of the ownership. At the end of the day, he's not got a poor squad, has he? While he might look at you and think, oh, he's been a bit unlucky. The bench is filled with players worth 40, 50, 60 million pounds.
I just don't think you can remove the situation. I really don't think you can take it out of it. That, as I said, if the moment it happened, there'd be players on the phone to their agents saying, get me out of here. That has an impact on the working environment. I don't care whether it's an office where everyone wants to leave or it's a football club. It's really hard to gauge what they're going to do next season. I take what you're saying. I had little sympathy when you were suggesting that that Reece James and Chilwell had to be replaced by Aspilicueta and Alonso, the poor loves. I don't know how they've managed, right? So I've got no sympathy on that. You have a wonderful, wonderful squad there. I'm not sure that they can be better next season. I just don't see how that can happen. I mean, how can it? I think players will want to leave. I think players will ask to leave. I think if you were looking at a bunch of the top clubs, take the top 3 or 4 from Germany, top 3 or 4 from England, Spain, and look at that. If you were a player now looking at it, you think there's uncertainty of me going to Chelsea. I'm going to wait. If I was a player, I think I'll wait. Or, Man City are interested, I'll go there. PSG are interested, I'll go there. With Chelsea, I want to see it another season. We don't know what's going to happen. Beforehand, their transfers were done by committee. That's not going to happen. There's a big overhaul. Now, listen, they are not they're not in the position that Portsmouth were a few years ago, but I think it's impossible. They cannot get to a point where they're better than Man City or Liverpool unless something miraculous is going to happen with an ownership who was richer than Abramovich. I just don't see that happening. I think the best they can hope for next season, if I was them, to think, make sure we don't drop so much that we drop out the top 4. Stay top 4 next season.
Yeah, I kind of agree with what you've said there, actually. I struggle to see them getting close to what Liverpool and Man City are this season. I think, obviously, if they can get rid of Lukaku, they've got to get him off the books. But the question is, how much of a loss are you going to take? You ain't getting your 100 million. You're not getting anywhere near that. I think you're looking at 50 million at best for him.
Yeah.
Jorginho is another one they're looking at getting rid of in the summer. So before you look at the ownership, even if there's no money to spend kind of thing, you'd imagine they can raise 80 million between them by the sales of their players. And it comes down to a question of, can you get Rudiger to sign a new contract so you don't have to replace him, and then buy wisely? But what that does is some of their big transfer targets, take Declan Rice, for example, well, they're not going to be able to afford him, are they? It's almost like he's gone. Your transfer targets, you can't afford him. So interesting at Stamford Bridge, but just very quickly, Gonzo, please, your mayor.
Well, I like Havertz. Actually, I mentioned him earlier. Rudiger, I've always liked Rudiger. I'm pleased I'm not a Johnny come lately with it in that sense. I remember going to Stamford Bridge, seeing him for the first time. But wow, what a player. Not changed my mind on him at all, by the way. Other players, their wingers always impress me, but then they flatter to deceive. I sort of look at Pulisic, and it was I always expecting Pulisic to be the best player soon. Doesn't quite manage it. Ziyech comes in, I think that's his name. Really, you think, oh, he's good. He's got all the talent in the world. Okay, he's going to explode now and score in the next, whatever 7 out of the next 10 games. It doesn't quite happen, but they are prodigiously gifted. These players. You look at Hudson-Odoi. Oh, you think, wow, this guy's talented. This is going to really happen for him. It doesn't quite happen. It happens enough. Don't get me wrong, to keep them up there, but until they can, as I mentioned earlier, some of these players I've just mentioned there can actually start. Ziyech needs to come in and do what Diaz has done at Liverpool, for instance, and they need their attacking players to make more of an impact than they do. But I do really like Havertz. I'm not saying they've only got 1 or 2 good players. They've clearly got lots of them, but I think they're quite below par this season. Mason Mount obviously had a little dip when you wasn't sure that the new manager liked Mason Mount, but I think that's now changed, and he's now starting to look really, really good again.
Yeah, I'm pleased to see Havertz sort of settling in now. When he first came in under Lampard, he didn't really know what to do with him, Lampard. He was given like a world-class player, and Lampard just looked at him like, I'm not sure how to get the best out of you. Tuchel's come in, he's getting the best out of Havertz. And when he was at the Bundesliga, he's probably one of my favourite players in Germany. And when he was at Leverkusen, he looked like he was going to be like a future Ballon d'Or winner. He looked that good, and come to Chelsea, and he's just getting back there now. He's still got a little bit to go, but he's probably, I assume, maybe going to win the Player of the Season, and I'd be surprised if he didn't. Thiago Silva's another one I really like. They looked after him well at Chelsea, only trying to play him 1 game a week, so he doesn't play midweeks or gets the weekend off, and they've tried to prolong his career, if you like. But when he does play, one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League, and I've seen a lot of Team of the Season starting to creep around on social media, understandably. It's that time. And I'm almost surprised at the lack of Thiago Silva, to be honest with you. I think the man is just utter class. I think Chelsea are a far better team when he's in the starting 11 than when he's not, really. I understand why Rudiger's getting all the plaudits at the minute, but I just think it's almost overshadowing what Thiago Silva is all about. And then, like you said, Mason Mount's coming back to his best over the last few months. So we're starting to score goals, set goals up and stuff. And he's always had the talent, Mason, but like you said, he just struggled at the start of the season for whatever reason. He's got back into it. And obviously, Reece James, best right back in the Premier League, as far as I'm concerned. Now, moving on to West Ham United. Right, Gonzo. Let's go straight in with the centre-back thing. One senior centre-back, Mr. Craig Dawson. How would you, not what you think Moyes do, what would you like to see happen in defence?
I'd like to see Elise come in.
Yeah.
I mean, particularly based, I'm not saying this because your video earlier either, based off of lots of things. I think now is the time. We've said this before, not just under Moyes. If he doesn't get in now, he's not getting in. If Elise is really important, if you can't get in when everyone's injured, then I don't think you're probably in the manager's plans. We've looked at it before, as I say, other positions. I'd like to see it. He is left-footed. He is a centre-half. He's played some professional first-team football. He's been out on loan. This is the time. This is what the academy is for. This is what your reserve centre-backs are there for. And we're about to find out if he's good enough or not. There's no choice. Unfortunately, we didn't blood him when we played some of the lesser teams. This is Chelsea, who are a magnificent team, and now's the time we're going to have to find out, really. I suspect he won't, Gio, but also with the news that Ogbonna is unlikely to be back this season, even more reason to play Elise in this one, because it just might. All right, it might fail, but you know what? It also might just succeed. And if it does succeed, we've got our centre-back for the rest of the season, and possibly somebody to look out for keeping on board next season as well.
And if it does fail, you do something different for the Frankfurt game as well. And there's nothing lost. If we lose on Sunday down to Elise, which is unlikely, but if we did, we won't miss out on top 6 football because of Stamford Bridge. We miss out on top 6 football because of no points against Brentford, 2 points against Burnley. They're the games that will have cost us top 6 football. And in those games, who was centre back? Ogbonna, Zuma, Diop, Dawson, not Elise. Elise hasn't gone in yet. I think part of the reason I want to see him start, though, so we don't have to change the system. Because if you take Elise out, you've got to go to a back 3. I just don't see Ben Johnson working as a centre back in a 4. I think he's under 6 foot, Ben Johnson. It's going to be difficult for him. I think he'll be fine in a 3. I don't mind Ben Johnson in a 3, but in a 4, I actually think that's riskier than playing Elise in a 4. At least Elise is a centre back. Moving a right back into centre back, I think that's a bigger risk than it is by putting the under 23's captain, who's left-footed, into left centre-back. I think it's far riskier to say to Johnson or Soufal, you go in there, mate. I think that is actually the bigger gamble, funnily enough. If you don't play Elise, I think you've got to switch to 3 at the back, really. And I don't want to see that. I want it kept as normal as possible, if you like. And that is Elise time on Sunday afternoon. Would you stick with Elise coming in? Would you keep it as a back 4? Would you switch to back 3, almost to give him a little bit of extra protection in there so that he's got Dawson plus the other centre back on the other side?
Yeah, I'll do that. And it's not just protection. The other side is protection from a wing back as well. So I think, I would insulate him within that system. I'll tell you what it is now.
Yeah, do it. Go on.
Okay, well, first of all, let's just say I'll play Areola in goal. Areola.
I was going to go back to him. I would also play Areola as well.
Has to be done, really. That was the more I watch it, the worse that goal gets. And yesterday on our Patreon channel, I did an interview with a former West Ham scout, and we were discussing about marking and tactics and lots of different things. From analysing something, and the more and we got onto a couple of the players when we were having a chat and whatnot. And the more I look at that goal, the worse it is, really. I'd go with a back 3 of Johnson, Dawson, and Elise.
I think Moyes will go with a back. What do you think Moyes will do? Johnson, Dawson, Cresswell.
Yeah.
Me too. I think Areola is important for Elise as well in this one. I think it would help the centre back if you've got a keeper behind you. When the ball comes in, it's a lofted cross or whatever. Your keeper going to come catch her. Your keeper's going to come and help you and bail you out a little bit. I think the biggest criticism that we've all got about Fabianski, other than his distribution or lack of it, is a lack of command in that box, that timid behaviour that we saw last weekend as well. And I think the last thing you need is, if you've got a bit of a nervous 21-year-old in centre back, the last thing you need is a nervous keeper coming out into a 6-yarder. I think it's a bad combination. I think you almost need Areola to bail Elise out. He might not have to, but just in case Elise panics or whatever, your keeper going to come out and almost smash through the back of him and get rid of it on his behalf. So back 4 for me with Soufal, Dawson, Elise, and Cresswell. I realise I've left out Ben Johnson. It's not because of form or anything. I know he had a bad game against Burnley. It's not like a punishment for that. It's just because I think I like Ben Johnson. It's a bit weird, but I almost like Ben Johnson on the bench for this one so that he can cover the right back, he can cover the centre back. And if Elise is having a real stinker of a game, come half time, you can take him off, put Ben Johnson on, and you can just cover various positions. I just think Soufal's offensive play will be important to this game as well, because while Chelsea's a difficult team on paper, I tell you what, they're there to be got at. They've got their own centre-back issues going into this one. No Rudiger possibly. Christensen looks like he's out as well. So Thiago Silva is going to come back in. But then what's he going to do? Sarr was dreadful against Arsenal. Good luck playing him. He's got Chalobah there who, for whatever reason, he doesn't like. He's not even been in the squad. And when Tuchel got asked about him, he basically said, I'm not picking him. He's not injured and then I'm just not picking him. So there's an issue there to some extent. So what's their back 3 going to be? Azpilicueta, Thiago Silva, and Chalobah or Sarr. Oh, brilliant. We're scoring against that defence. So get Soufal on the pitch. Right, moving into midfield, what you got? To be honest with you, actually, I'm going to say this. Does the rest team just pick itself now?
No, not for mine, because
you've got a difficult one, because you've got one less attacker, haven't you?
Yeah, so I've got to leave someone out. But so I've got Soufal as the right wing back and Cresswell as the left wing back for this one, obviously. which I do think Cresswell being outside of Elise. So basically, Elise has Dawson one side of him, Cresswell the other. I think which is more sensible than having Fornals there. I also think we need Cresswell's delivery because the idea of the three at the back is we're going to actually pack it with defensive players. So in front of Areola, you're going to have Dawson, Johnson, Elise, Soufal, Cresswell, and then you're going to have Souček and Rice, who can both defend and cover. That's a lot. I know there's not a centre back there, obviously Dawson aside, but that's a lot of defensive players in front. Now, obviously, yes, Rice can score goals, Souček can score goals, but you get what I'm saying. There's like a brick wall there, which is basically saying, right, you shall not pass. So I think it's really important that on set plays, if we get out the pitch of deliveries there, which is why Cresswell's there. So I've gone for a front three, if you like, of Lanzini, Bowen and Antonio.
I have a question for you.
Please.
Cresswell left wing back. So you're doing three at the back. That matches Chelsea's formation, like man v man. That will put Cresswell up against Reece James. Are you confident in that?
No, but I don't think you can have all things. Because I still think he will provide better protection for Elise than Fornals would against Reece James because I just think his positioning's better. Is he as energetic? No, but I also think at some point there are. So if you look, you think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players there who can defend. At some point, you have to switch your mind to attack. And bearing in mind, there's only really 3 dedicated attackers. I think you've got to make sure you've got someone who can do the deliveries. At some point, you balance it up. I think if you think too much, we're already worried about their midfield and their attack scoring goals against us. If we're then worried about their defenders scoring goals against us, we'll almost not attack at all. And I think we need an outlet, and that's why I go with Cresswell.
I actually think Fornals would do better against Reece James and Cresswell. I do. I think Cresswell's a good player. I like him a lot. I don't have to defend myself because people that watch this channel know I like Cresswell. But I think when he's isolated one-on-one against a good opponent, I think he can get done a few times. And we saw him against Brentford switching off because Mbeumo went over there and stood next to him for 2 minutes and he ended up scoring. I would worry with him against Reece James. I would fancy Fornals a little bit more, but that then provides the Cresswell dilemma. Well, where do you play him? You can't leave him out. You can't go Johnson, Dawson, Elise, then Fornals on the ledge. Where's Cresswell going to go? You can't leave him.
Well, you don't get Elise. You don't. If that happens,
unless no, probably not. Unless you put Cresswell at the back and move them over one by one, and then you have to leave out Johnson or Soufal. Interesting. These are the dilemmas that David Moyes is faced with, isn't it? The rest of my team picks itself. You can probably guess what it is. Declan Rice, Thomas Souček, Manuel Lanzini in midfield, and then Bowen, Antonio, and Fornals up front as well. Are you confident?
No, but I also don't. I'm not worried. I'm not worried about it. I don't. I'm not quaking in my boots.
Up, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm not quaking in my boots at this week. They can beat Chelsea. There's no. I've got no worries about that. They should beat us. They probably will beat us. But I'm not overly concerned about it. Even with all our injuries, even when that team sheet goes in, even if you just look at mine, take mine, okay, Areola, Dawson, Elise, Soufal, Souček, Rice, Cresswell, Lanzini, Bowen, Antonio, I'd still look at that if I was Chelsea. Think actually there's some players there to worry about still. Don't fancy playing West Ham this weekend. Certainly not with a week's rest. Yeah, not confident, no, but not concerned either.
I think Chelsea will have less first 11 players in their starting 11 than we will on Sunday, in a weird way. Because obviously they don't have Chilwell, they don't have Rudiger. They'd probably have Christensen at the back as well. So they've actually got less. They might have 7 of their starting 11, whereas we'll have 9 of our starting 11. The only one missing is that additional centre back to play alongside Craig Dawson. So actually, we're probably only missing one person to make it our cup final 11. If you may argue that Bonner and Zuma would partner each other rather than Dawson, but I'm not too sure they would, to be honest with you. I think Dawson would keep his spot if we had a cup final and everyone was fit. So I actually think we're only one player away from our starting 11 on Sunday afternoon. Unfortunately, I say one position away because he's injured, the backup to him is injured, and the backup to the backup is injured as well. That's the real problem, isn't it? Whereas, like I said, I think Chelsea are missing more players, but this is where I guess strength and squad depth and all that comes into it. I'm relatively optimistic, Gonzo. I think we'll score. I think we'll also concede. And I think it largely depends on what Chelsea turns up as well as what West Ham turn up. Because, like I said, in the last month, I've seen Chelsea go to Madrid, smash them. Okay, they went out, but they dominated in 90 minutes. They were fantastic for 90 minutes. Tuchel got his game plan bang on. Seen them rip Southampton apart. It looked like 9-0 was on the cards again for the Saints. But then I've seen them go and get beat 4-2 by Arsenal, who couldn't score. And the defending from Chelsea last night was shocking. You know, poor ball from Christensen. Sarr didn't know what day of the week it is. Aspilicueta hauling down somebody for hauling down Nketiah for a penalty. That young lad scored 2 goals. He barely get a minute. You know, he didn't even get a new contract at the end of the season. Leaving, he's sat there doing an interview during the week, so he's not getting enough starts, but gets 1 game against Chelsea and he scores 2 due to the defending that Chelsea provided him. So it's hard not to be optimistic. But in relation to the game itself, I'm interested to hear your stances where you are at the minute to some extent, because I feel I've been personally really focused on European football, but also just as focused on the Premier League for the top 6. But this injury, I might feel different come Sunday afternoon, but I feel like I've almost become a bit more focused on the Europa League now, because it's the semi-final, and it's almost like, can we juggle Chelsea and Arsenal coming up this week with the Frankfurt semi-final? And I'm not convinced we can. So I feel like I've almost got ready to concede points in the Premier League in order to focus on the Europa League semi-final. Does that make sense?
No, I know what you're saying. Yeah, that's not for me. I've got to be honest with you. I sort of along for the ride really with what Moyes is doing, which is taking each match seriously, and that's cool. And that's always up and for all of my football in life. That sounded like a cliche to me, but I'm sort of with it now. It's not a cliche. That's the way I feel as well. I look at Man U and I think they're there for the taking. I really do. I really think we can score more points. Accrue more points, between now and the end of the season than Manchester United do. Manchester United are on a terrible, not run, but they're a foreign manager would say they're in a terrible moment. And they really are. And I feel that Manchester United for this season, not long term, Manchester United at some point in the next 10 years will be a big club again. And their talisman is going through something terrible at the moment. So they can't really rely on him. And I just feel that we can get more points than they can between now and the end of the season, regardless of whether we're playing Chelsea or whether we aren't, So focused on Europe, looking forward to it. Hard not to be with all the tickets going on sale and everyone, booking to go to the boats and and meeting up for a beer. And it's hard not to focus on the game against Frankfurt, particularly after our heroics against Olympique Lyonnais. But I've not given up on the Premier League yet. I still think we can finish above Wolves and Manchester United. And you know what? If we can, and we get to everything we've done this season, we get to do it all again next season.
Yeah, I agree. We can finish 6. I hope we do. I think I'm willing to concede the Arsenal game next week, though. In between those Frankfurt games and stuff, I'm willing to almost allow Moyes to do what he wants. But for this one, there's no excuse, really. We've had a week preparation. Yes, Diop's injury is a bit of a blow, but we've known about it for a week now. Moyes has had a week on the training ground. Chelsea haven't had a week on the training ground. They've had a midweek game. And we've often been on the worst end of the deal, if you like, in regards to fatigue. We've gone into some games off the back of a European fixture, struggled, got beaten. We can chalk it down to fatigue. Well, surely then this is where it favours us now, because Chelsea, granted it's Wednesday rather than Thursday, but they've played Wednesday, they're playing Thursday, we've had the rest. That's got to go in our favour, and I'll take any small advantage right now. Any small advantage that we can get on our opposition, we'll grab it with both hands. So for this one, I expect a fresh and fighting West Ham, and I think if we win this one, it almost takes the pressure off the Arsenal one, and it would allow Moyes to take 2 or 3 out the first 11, rest them for the Frankfurt game, make sure that we qualify for the final. Can I get any final words from yourself, Gonzo, as well as your all-important score prediction?
In terms of us, we got to not let the defensive situation dominate our thinking and dominate our preparation. We still got to have a spring in our step. We still got to believe that we can win this, I'm not saying Chelsea are never taken. Chelsea are a magnificent team. But you know what? Look what we did at Olympique Lyonnais. We are a magnificent team as well. And we turn up and at our best, then we can really do this. I've not given up us getting points here or at Arsenal. I've got to say, I wouldn't be surprised if we nick a point here and it's a 1-1 draw.
For some reason, I fancy us, Gonzo.
I like it.
I do. I look at Chelsea now, and their top four is insecure. They're not quite secure top four yet. If anything, they're probably looking over their shoulders at Arsenal after that result, thinking, crikey, they're getting a bit close here. But they've still got the FA Cup to go as well. And I don't know. I just don't see the same fight amongst them as I do amongst us to some extent. And I actually think we're going to win. I'm going to say Chelsea 1, West Ham 2. I think we're going to do it. I think we're going to get 3 points on Sunday. I do. I fancy us. I'm probably getting a bit misled by the last game. You know, Chelsea getting beat by Arsenal, but it's hard not to. They were a shambles. Play like that, we'll take advantage of it. The one thing I will say, Elise or whoever plays centre back, you won't see defending like we saw Chelsea against Arsenal. That was horrendous at the back. You will not see that from West Ham on Sunday. However, hopefully they turn up and do that for us, and Bowen will be in there and getting his goals. So anyway, if you enjoyed this preview, drop a like, comment, subscribe to me around here. 2 o'clock kickoff on Sunday, which means at 12:55, 5 to 1, we'll be live with our build-up show. So you're going to Stamford Bridge, enjoy it. If you're not going for Stamford Bridge, come back to this channel on Sunday afternoon. We'll catch you then.